last year, March 2020, we were supposed to be, like, my family, we as a club that my family own, we were supposed to be hosting a 20k event, and that had to be cancelled. Well, postponed. There was a whole thing of, could we postpone it, could we cancel it, like what was the word in the PSA would let us use, and that was a real shame. And the whole thing of that was, at the time, I remember it was all kind of kicking off in different European countries, and then we were sort of looking at it in the population here, 65% of the population are over the age of 65. Like, for those who might be watching it, like, I live in Colwyn Bay, North Wales. My club is in Rows-on-Sea, North Wales. It's a very, it's a retirement area. It's very scenic, very flat. It's not a city. It's just where people come to retire, basically. And the time of when COVID was really sort of kicking in, we were aware of international players coming here, and we would try and obviously advertise that publicly. And we were just, I was a bit like, we can't, there was a player from Thailand, for example, and I was like, we can't have this girl travel all the way from Thailand where cases are kicking off over there with this disease. It's just not appropriate. And I had some messages at the time being like, I think, if people want to watch, they don't watch, you should just run the event anyway and maybe just minimize the crowd or whatever. But we were at the time just sort of predicting what eventually was going to happen with a full lockdown, because you don't shut down Wuhan, which has like millions and millions of people. You don't shut that down for 75 days unless something is seriously wrong. So at the time, there was a whole thing of, can we just push it back to a sensible time, another time that's more sensible and more appropriate to put on, because it's just not, I don't know. And there was a whole thing to and fro in with PSA about if we could cancel it, postpone it. And then 10 days later, the whole tour stopped. And so that was obviously a shame. And then I spent that whole year not being able to do much. I couldn't go to the first event in Manchester because in Wales at the time, if someone had to isolate, the whole household has to isolate, which is slightly different now. And it was slightly different to England rules. And obviously with my family having their own business and we're all trying to keep this up and going, we opened in August. So that was quite late again. And the Manchester event was in September. And I was like, to PSA, like, what are the rules with if you come into contact with someone who's been in close contact with someone who's been tested positive, or if they test positive, like, do I have to isolate? Do I have to stay at the hotel? What's the situation? And they didn't know, because it was a new thing. And I think they were just, putting this event on and sort of, I don't know, just seeing how it went. So I couldn't play that because I couldn't go to a tournament where there was uncertainty. Then I couldn't go to the Egyptian Open because there was no insurance that covered professional players playing in an event, because the advice from the government was don't go to Egypt at this time. And then eventually I managed to play Blackball, which was in December. And for that lead up, it started to open up a little bit in the country of being able to play with more players. And so I felt relatively good going into that. Okay, I lost to SJ, who won the whole thing. Like, it was 11-9 the fifth. And I felt at the time, like, if anything could be a good loss, that was it. And I was like, well, that's a massive step up from where I was. So I've made use of my time at home. After that, we went into lockdown again. And I've just not played. I've trained my backside off, but then I've gone to play the March event and I was burnt out from trying to keep up with online PTs, trying to do fitness classes that were online for the club because we were in lockdown, trying to do my own training, maybe did too much and was just potentially stressed of it all because it's really uncertain again, and knowing that I'm potentially more rusty than I was the time before. And I thought, right, well, I need to play. Danny Lee asked me to do one of his challenge events. And I'm thinking, great, this is like amazing. I'll get to play Tesney and I'll see where I'm at and yada, yada, yada. I'm feeling really whacked out from Blackball. But I felt rusty. And I was like, how am I so tactically unaware on court? I've been playing since I was since I was a kid. Like, how do you forget that? And I just thought at the time, as much as I'm really grateful for it, that was sort of the inspiration behind kicking this off, really. I was just a bit like, I wish I had another match tomorrow, or I wish I had another match yesterday to maybe sharpen me up for match play, having the referee, understanding how someone could read what type of shot you're doing all the time. And so initially I asked Tesney, I wanted it to be a Welsh thing, and it just couldn't happen at the time. And I thought, right, okay, so who, like I said, I've been staying at home. I've not been traveling that much. And so I thought, right, well, who is in like a bubble? Who is like not going anywhere as well? So I initially asked the 3 girls from Nottingham. So it's Tina Gillies, Colleen Omard, and Lucy Beecroft were in my mind. Colleen's still working back from her foot injury, but the other 2 were keen. And I thought, right, well, I need a 4th. And Ali Thompson from Scotland, she's been in the Scottish squash bubble, and takes 2 lateral flow tests a week. And she's helped me out with getting league and exhibitions, and, you know, just been really great with previous like gigs before. And I thought, right, well, she's another safe candidate. So let's get them all into our event bubble and see how it goes. I was really open with them. I was like, this is just you're like my guinea pigs. And fortunately we've got my mum and dad bought like a Victorian like shop and 2 flats, like a building in town, like literally 4 minutes down the road. So that's in Colwyn Bay, on the seafront, and they've fully been converted. We're hoping to do like an Airbnb situation, and the flat we were staying in is huge. So they all came, filled out the forms of like, have you been anywhere within the last 40 days, blah, blah, blah. So we all were like, right, we are in the event bubble. So is my family, because obviously we need a referee. And so I made my dad be the ref, which luckily they were okay with. I think they realised that he would probably be more harsh on me than them. My mum is like the organiser of everything to do with my life. So she was in the event bubble, and my boyfriend Matt was acting cameraman and just sorting everything out and doing all the things with videos and match highlights and stuff like that. And yeah, it was just a case of I couldn't sit back and wait for another tournament and then go into it and feel like, oh yeah, I'm really fit, but I'm match rusty. It's just I couldn't just sit back and do nothing. Like, I don't want to start traveling miles and miles for games. So I kind of brought people to me, and, you know, was like, we are in an event bubble, like this is we're making this a safe environment for a reason. And everyone was really respectful and cool with it. And yeah, it was my way of just looking at how I felt and played in previous matches. And I just thought, I need to do something, because it's all very well me training, but there's no substitute for a hard squash match and with a referee, and money. Yeah, that's a big thing. That was a thing as well. That's a bit of incentive, because I have none. And so I'm always looking for ways in which I can just get by and not have to keep asking my parents for money. Because at the moment, with these platinums being in Egypt, it's like I'm making no money. And I know that's the same situation with a lot of other players. I'm not saying like I'm the only one, but I can only speak for myself. Like, so this, yeah, I needed to do something, and that's sort of how it came about, in a really long-winded answer. I was bothered about, because the last 2.5, 3 years, I've really struggled with injury, and being able to back up not match soreness, but being able to back up match intensity and that match play and feel, and just, you kind of get battle hardened by, it's like 4 or 5 years ago, I went through a phase of winning quite a few. They were 15Ks back then, when the structure was a bit different, and I went through a phase of winning those events, and then sort of performing in the World Series or Platinum Now events, and I had a good balance of being able to get through 4 matches, but also then stepping up and seeing how I would do against the top players. But then what's kind of happened now is the way the tour is sort of balanced out, there's not really that many sort of middle events. And when there are, everyone enters them, because it's like with the divisor, you can kind of do you can kind of see how you do, and it won't show up on your ranking points, and it kind of gets pushed down. And so I feel like the standard of entry, even in when Manchester, before it got cancelled, the entry list was a joke. Like, everyone was entering it. And so even if the event had gone on with people who only lived in the UK, you'd still have got three top 10 players, and then filled up the rest of the top 10 seeds with people in the top 30. Like, that's an appropriate entry list for a silver event. But prior to that, when it was full of other international players, you know, the whole nearly the whole top 15, 16 were in it. And it's like, I get why they're doing it. Everyone wants tournaments. But if there's no cap on what people can enter, like there is in tennis, then it just shoves people who are lower ranked down even further and further, because the top players can get in everything. But like I say, I understand that people want tournaments. Like, you know, if you can get in it, you can enter it. Like, you know, but I feel like I haven't got through a tournament for so long because I haven't been able to. It's not worth me traveling somewhere. This is pre-COVID. It's not worth me traveling somewhere for a tour challenge 20 unless I'm going to be top 4. And really recently, that just hasn't been happening. Okay, you could argue that my ranking's gone down since my injury. To that, where I was still ranked in the 20 odds, like, and I was still top 4. It's just happened recently where there's just been this decrease in those tournaments. And so it's just like a case, I haven't played 3 matches in a row in a tournament environment since the end of 2018. That's a long time to not have 3 matches back to back in a tournament environment. So I was just happy one, I didn't get injured during this event that I hosted, so that's great. 2, I didn't get too stiff, because you can get really stiff from just playing matches and there's a bit of tension in the body and whatever. And mentally as well, getting through that feeling of, because I played well against Tinner, and then I had to back it up the next day and play Lucy, and even that, like, she's a great player, but maybe self-consciously in my mind I'm like, well, I've beaten Tinner, I can beat Lucy. And then Lucy starts playing well, and so I'm trying to get that best out of myself again, like, without even meaning to think like that, because you've got to treat everyone with the same respect. But maybe self-consciously I'm thinking, well, if I've beaten Tinner, I can beat Lucy. That's not the right way to think, but you know what I mean? It's a case of just making sure you step up every time again. And I had that mini mental battle with myself in that event. So I had, you know, a great game with Ali, and then backed it up and played Tinner, and then had backed it up again. And it's like, I just haven't done that. So I felt really great after it. I think I would have felt really great anyway if I had lost all my matches and just got through without injury, to be honest with you. Like, that's the main thing. I haven't been able to do that in so long. And I think everyone else was feeling the same as well, in terms of, oh, I'm a bit stiff in my quads actually after 2 matches. And it's like, oh, I'm feeling it a little bit. Like, on the 3rd day, I think we were all a bit like done. So that was interesting. I don't know for sure, but I'm just getting a feeling. We were a bit stiff in certain places, and it's like, oh, how are you feeling? Like, oh, this is new. Yeah, it gives me a lot of confidence. Like I said, just knowing that I can play to that level again. Well, I feel like I have played at that level consistently for a while. I actually go with it and then backing it up the next day. That's the key. It's all very well giving a one-off performance, but I've not always. Recently, I've been a bit unlucky with, I'll have a good result, and then something will happen, like I'll get out the shower and hurt my foot, or I'll just do like a warm down and roll my ankle, or just something afterwards, and it's like, oh, you can't step up again because it's just something's just not happening. It's not clicking. The universe is telling you that, you know, it's just one match and that's it. So yeah, the fact that I could do that and play that well. I finished my degree. I went back to do a uni course in 2017, and I finished last year during lockdown, and that was in management of travel and tourism. We've got North Wales Tourism and Go North Wales based literally across the road from the flat, the apartment we were staying in this event bubble. And so like you said, I'm really aware of what tourism brings to the area. Like where I live, it totally relies on tourism. So that's what the premise was when we were going to run this event in March. Like we got the backing to run it, so long as we promoted the local area. And I thought, well, that's what we're going to do this time. So I took the girls to, I mean, it's a shame because this week, as of Monday, the 26th of April, outdoor attractions are allowed to open and outdoor seating for hospitality is allowed to reopen. So it's a shame that I couldn't have taken them to some of the coffee shops and actually sat outside with like a proper mug instead of a paper cup mug. Because we had a little trip around Cornwall. We had a trip to we played off with 2 different coffee shops, so that was quite funny. But we went to, I walked them all along the prom. So there's like, Colwyn Bay has 4 different districts, where it's like Colwyn Bay, the city centre or town centre, Rose-on-Sea, where my club is, which is like the seaside beach resort, Old Colwyn, which is more residential, and Mockdra, which is the industrial area. So those 4 districts make up the Bay of Colwyn. And so you can walk along the promenade from my club to Colwyn Bay, and you know where there's the cut-off. And they have this massive sign that just says Colwyn. So we had some pictures with that. And the weather was beautiful when they came up. Like, it just did a U-turn because it had been a bit miserable. I mean, it's Wales, so it's kind of a given. But they came and it was like really nice. So I made the most of trying to get them outdoors as much as possible and just to see the area, because we couldn't like maybe literally do anything. I kind of liked showing off where I lived a little bit and having the girls say, like, you can't get bored. You know, you could always go off and see something or just have a little walk, especially if it's nice, especially if the weather's nice out. You could literally just grab a coffee and have a little mooch about in any of the spots that I took them. It's just quite chilled out. Again, those will be on some clips that we'll be showing on the highlights reels of the event, and I'll be sharing more on my social media once those videos come out. I've saved a lot on my phone from like stories that we took. Play me here or train or just see where I live. I really hope that it encourages people to message me maybe about the apartment or my club facility than just my hometown. I mean, imagine if they all came up here and then turned around to me and said I hated it. But in all honesty, like I say, the drive from the apartment in town to my club, you drive along the coast, and I don't know what it was. They must have brought the sunshine, but it was just, the water was so calm. The sea was so, like, the sky was so blue, and it made the water look so nice. It wasn't too busy, so you had a sense of people being on the beach and people sort of enjoying the sun, but it wasn't overly crowded. So you kind of got a little sense of what it could be like, but not ridiculous. And every time we went, it was like, oh my God, the drive is really nice. Like, it's just, this is your drive to a squash club. Like, I don't think they could quite get over that. I know Lucy, obviously being from Newcastle, like, she's on the coast as well, but now lives in Nottingham, and she was saying, God, I miss living by the water. There's just something about it. But yeah, the girls were just totally appreciative. They sort of felt the same as me in that, yeah, you could take it for granted, but don't. But the girls were so lovely about it that, like, I can't remember who it was, but again, they were just like, you can't get bored, even if you just grabbed a coffee and had a mooch about. It's just really nice to see the area that I live in, and literally how everything's so close to everywhere. That you get Conway Castle for one, and then you get this Angel Bay seals sighting, scenic sort of I can't think of the word for it, but you get Castle and walled town to just nice outdoorsy walk to the beach to something else. And then if the zoo opened up, it would be in like a woodland, and then it would be something else. And it was just, there's so many different things to look forward to and to sort of experience where I live. And even yesterday we went to Better Secoid, which is only about 20 to 30 minutes from where I live. You just go through Llanrwst, which again is a really pretty area. A lot of people go walking there. And we went to Betws just to go to this particular like wood fire pizzeria place where they're doing takeaways, and then you take it and there's just this massive field where people have gone to sit outside, and it's just like you go along to Aber Falls, Shadow Falls, and the walk, like people go hiking and walking quite a lot around here where I live, especially on the Orme of Angel Bay where I live. And I didn't know that until lockdown. I didn't know that there were so many routes where people just like go hiking and walking. And I'm a bit annoyed about that, but that's, you know, something. It's like, you know, if you live somewhere, it's like, well, have you done that such and such attraction? It's like, oh no, I've not done that. It's like, I've never been up Snowdon. And the girls were asking me like, oh, have you ever, what's that like? And I'm like, I don't know, never been. But that's just a total local thing to say, I guess. So yeah, I'm happy that I feel like they genuinely enjoyed it. I don't feel like they were just being nice to my face. But I just, I feel like it was a really good few days, nearly a week. I feel like it was a really positive experience for everybody. Yeah, I'm trying to coordinate whether it's an all Welsh one or maybe a cross borders one. But I really want to try and replicate what would have been in March 2020. But I can't see it being international, just because of the uncertainty behind it. But like I said, I would like to stream it, because when we've done events in the past, even when they were like 5Ks or closed satellites for the men, when I was younger and wasn't playing PSA events, you know, they've always been online. We've always tried to televise it in some way, whether it's on Ustream, because I saw that used to be used for Carol Muller in Cleveland, whether it was on Ustream or Facebook or anything. I think we will try and do one in some way. It's just trying to organise anything at the moment. Sport Wales have been quite strict in terms of bringing back indoor sports. So this whole event that we put on, I only got the green light for it maybe like 5 days before I started planning it. Like, hold on, it would have been 2 whole weeks before the actual event started that we officially got the green light from Sport Wales to run a behind closed doors event, because Sport Wales have just been, I feel rightly so, they've been quite strict with trying to hold events on. And it was really annoying because I saw, you know, you see England squash putting on things for their players, and it's like, fine, like, great, they're putting match play on for their players. But as someone who obviously isn't in the England system, it was really annoying me. And I was like, I want match play. I want that too. I want, you know, what can I do? But with Wales being slightly stricter and not putting behind closed doors events on or doing anything with any indoor sport, it wasn't just squash, any indoor sport, it was really strict with it. Soon as I got the go ahead, I was like, right, I am doing something ASAP. I need to make sure that I get that match play. Because of things, and then with Manchester being cancelled just before the event started, it was a case of like, well, I still want match play just in case something gets put on last minute instead of it being cancelled last minute. Yeah, it's like I say, the event, we will do something. I just can't fully say what yet because everything's just chopping and changing. But I really enjoyed the event organising aspect. It's like what I did in my degree. That's part of what I did, so I enjoyed that aspect of it, and I'm putting my degree to good use. So yeah, hopefully soon, I'll be able to say for definite what it will be, but I've sort of got a plan, but not fully set in stone yet.